You are listening to Tempest in a Stockpot. I'm Christine Bruce.
And I'm Brenda Barrett.
And together we're agitating for change in northern BC. One of the manufactured obstacles that most food insecure people face is stigma. And while we witnessed our remote communities managing that obstacle unconsciously, we wanted to speak with a community that purposely counteracts stigma in their policies. This episode is entitled Neutralizing Manufactured Poverty, and it's all about working around bureaucratic thinking, a little like a river meandering around obstacles. Krystle, tenBrink, and Claire Dewar work directly with politicians, working around obstacles in food policy thinking. They've discovered that when you give people agency over their food choices and include everyone who needs to eat, and that would be everyone, it changes how everything works, including the charity model and how we interact with each other. Time to check our stock pot and smell that heavenly aroma. With a Google search, you'll discover that Canada has about 20% of the world's fresh water. Water plays a fundamental and indispensable role in ensuring a stable and sufficient food supply. It is, in fact, the critical resource of agriculture and the entire food system. 10 years ago, the Unistoten camp was my home. We drank the water directly from that glacier-fed river. It was refreshing, life-giving, worth the personal risk of pipeline resistance advocacy. But in addition to the pipeline challenges, I was faced with other severe threats in northern BC, like the pine beetle infestation and the increased risk of fire. When I moved permanently to Smithers, I realized how vulnerable the northern population is, living on a remote landscape in colder climates. Even with those threats, at any hour of every day, I can hear the river meandering downstream from the mountains. The water flows around obstacles, not unlike the resilient people who live and thrive here. If any resource is a metaphor for food security, it's water. Manufactured poverty is a concept that challenges the thinking that poverty is a direct result of laziness. Believe me, it's got more to do with outhouse luck. We live in a capitalist system where policies and economic structures perpetuate hardship. Things like low wages and insufficient affordable housing intentionally keep people poor, which creates a clear hierarchy between the haves and the have-nots. One of the many consequences of this hierarchy is stigma. The haves, being understandably insecure about their position in the hierarchy, begin to unconsciously police anyone who might take advantage of their charity. Remember, this is an intentionally programmed behavior in society, set up to ensure that the hierarchy remains in place. I believe that people generally are well-intended, but we've all been programmed to act in certain ways. Statistics show that hardly anyone means to take advantage, and yet we police each other as if someone might. For instance, we set age and product limits on charitable items like the farmers market coupons and Christmas hamper programs. The result is that a lot of people who desperately need this assistance are prevented from getting it. From a recipient perspective, I've been forced to prove I'm trustworthy, which immediately puts me in a stigmatized role. I much prefer the carrot strategy to the stick method of motivating behaviors. Being punitive in your approach never builds community. But what if we intentionally worked around these concepts? What if we change our expectations on each other and reprogram ourselves? And that's just what they're doing in Squamish. Krystle, tenBrink, and Claire Dewar live and work in Squamish, BC. Claire is a senior planner in the region Squamish-Lillooet, and Krystle is the executive director and one of the co-founders of the Squamish Food Policy Council. Now, if your experience of food policy, like mine, is that it's like eating cardboard, you're in for a treat. Krystle and Claire had me gasping in joy at what they've accomplished. Nothing dry about this meal.
My name is Claire, and I'm a senior planner at the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, and I've been working in this role for about 11 years. And food and agriculture is an important part of our planning at the regional district. We have 3 agriculture areas, so that's been also a really exciting learning journey just to see how planning can support our food systems.
I'm Krystle tenBrink, and I work as the executive director for the Squamish CAN nonprofit, which is Climate Action Network. We've been around since 2009, working on very much grassroots food system work. And we do a lot in the zero waste space as well. And of course, there's this beautiful circular synergy between zero waste and food systems. And we've, Claire and I have been working together along with a third colleague who works at the District of Squamish for probably going on like more than 8 years.
I understand that it's been about 15 years ago that a food charter was brought forward by a group of citizens. What were the key factors that allowed for that food charter to move off of paper and into action?
When Squamish Can formed, we were trying to bring community together and trying to make them feel that climate action was this tangible thing that we could actually work on in a small community. It was a very daunting topic. There was still discussion on and non-believers of climate change. And so this organization formed and we started working on, teaching people how to prepare their own meals. We started teaching preserving, harvesting, just skills that maybe perhaps have been a bit lost over the last few decades. And we had a lot of great turnout, lots of support. We went and hopped on a bus and toured a bunch of really inspiring projects in Richmond and Vancouver, both urban and rural projects. Over time, we were able to get the attention of a funder through Vancouver Coastal Health who offered to support us in our grassroots initiatives, but also requested that we strengthen food policy. So of course we said yes, but I don't really know what that means. And it was highly recommended to us that we start with a food charter, it's an educational tool that's created by your community, citizens and organizations and elected officials that can be brought forward and endorsed as a food charter to hopefully inform policy down the road. And that whole process took about 2 to 3 years. And in fact, the first time it went to council, it wasn't endorsed. We didn't really know what we were asking for, and the elected leaders at the time weren't sure if we could turn this into policy right away. And we went back 6 months later with a better plan, working with one of the elected officials. And so it was in 2015, and it segued really perfectly into the official community planning that the District of Squamish was starting to do in the following year.
Amazing. I can jump in just to share from the SRD and the regional district's perspective, and how we got to connect in with this important food charter work and space. And, Krystle mentioned this official community plan process that the District of Squamish was undertaking, and how the food charter directly contributed to that policy area in the District of Squamish OCP. We also had the opportunity to look to that food charter and embed the intentions of that food charter into our regional growth strategy. And so the District of Squamish is a member municipality of the SRD, and they are signatory to our regional growth strategy. And we were able to use that food charter and the work that was happening in the OCP and really align our policy and strategic directions at that regional growth strategy level as well. And so I think we shared this earlier, this kind of aligning with the District of Squamish OCP and the SLRD regional growth strategy, aligning our food systems, policies and goals stemming from this food charter sort of allowed us to launch into this agriculture plan space from a really aligned and really coming at it from partnerships right from the get-go. And yeah, I think we were really excited to see the food charter. It was interesting that Krystle mentioned this coming from this climate lens. And I think one of the things we really lean into as a regional district and see as a huge opportunity is sort of around this climate action in food, is that as a regional district, that involves a lot of rural and remote communities, food and our food systems and strengthening our food systems is a key part of our climate action. And that we have in our regional growth strategy, it's kind of highlighted in the food charter and also our ag plans and the OCPs. So I think that's just like how we can connect all of these spaces and feel like we're having impact, from the ground up, but then also aligning across all of our planning documents too.
I don't know if the right word is a champion, Krystle, but you talked about one of the council and how key was that? I think the acceptability, right? Like timelines can align, but unless maybe the right people see the opportunity rather than competition around priorities, it might not have happened.
even today, like looking back and even today, if you don't have that champion at a local government level, whether it's a city planner or an elected official or the mayor or another staff person, you as a nonprofit or as an external organization that's trying to collaborate with local governments, it's really hard to understand or navigate the systems that exist. It's not to say that there's a lot of barriers. There's just, I'm not an employee of a local government. And, it may not serve our community best if I am, right? So we want to set up these systems to be collaborative. And one of the things we did after we got the food charter endorsed is we formed a Squamish Food Policy Council organization to continue this work and to actually start getting set up for strengthening the OCP, and kind of actually the District of Squamish did a full rewrite. And I think, Claire, I'm not sure if the SLRD also did a full rewrite at the time, but it was a chance to really start fresh. And the Food Policy Council was really committed to seeing that we could remove all barriers and dream big. And we're planning for the next 20 to 25 years. The OCP in particular was for 2040. So we were planning for the next 23 years ahead, and we really wanted to ensure that policies were being removed for all kinds of things and weren't barriers or roadblocks for our community food assets to increase, which includes strengthening the food system, our farmers and supporting them, etc. But yeah, having that key elected official who she was instrumental in moving this forward and just helping supporting us in these systems. And we have still a dedicated elected official today who still is a representative with the Food Policy Council. So I think that's a bit of a testament to the commitment, both at a local government level, as well as just, how to work collaboratively, effectively.
And I mean, you mentioned, Claire, that you've worked in the position 11 years. I think probably consistency of people in general across all the different roles helps, right? Because you build those relationships and sometimes then people move on, right? Elected officials sometimes are only there for years.
Yeah, that's a big thing. There has been a lot of consistency between Sarah and Claire and myself, and even we've had different elected officials be a part of it, but it's been just a really smooth, transition for them to join in.
We're talking a lot of policy, a lot of theory. I want to get to the meat of the situation. What does this look like on the ground? What are some new developments happening? And how do the municipal bodies enable that?
So after policies were developed into the official community plan and the regional growth strategy, the District of Squamish and Area D never had an agriculture plan. So we started working with our Ministry of Agriculture to get an agriculture land use inventory completed. And then we were able to get some funding for some agriculture planning, and funding contributed from both local governments as well as the Ministry of Agriculture and some external funding. And once we could all come together and start planning for the future of our food and farm systems, then we were really started getting into the details of what does our region need. And we came out with 6 goals and 52 different action items to work towards over a 10-year period. But perhaps I could share a really great example of a recent project that we've worked on. One of the top priorities for our agriculture plan is to get land into production. So that's really looking at supporting land leasing. And we work really closely with young agrarians and fostering and facilitating conversations between landowners and folks that want to farm. And so we are a key group where if you move to town and you want to start farming, or if you have a home and you have land and you want to get it into production, but you don't want to do it yourself, everybody sends people to us. So it's a really great centralized place where we can be that boots on the ground to facilitate those conversations and see if people might be a good fit. And we've been able to be successful with a few of them. Another project is we developed a partnership agreement with the District of Squamish as part of this agriculture plan to help activate underutilized spaces, specifically at the District of Squamish, and also directly support farmers getting their product directly to customers. There's a twofold project here under this Food Hub umbrella, and we've been able to activate an underutilized 1,000 square foot commercial kitchen, and we're now running school meal programs out of there and feeding 400 to 500 kids every day for 170 days per year. So that's now generated almost $500,000 in economic development in the agri-food space, as well as procuring $500 to $1,000 a week from local farmers that we're buying. We want to support local procurement initiatives. In the hours and days where that kitchen is not being used to feed kids, we're making it available for agri-food production. So if you have your own jam making business, you've got your favorite pierogi recipe and you're looking to get it out to the farmer's market, or you're a baker, we're making this kitchen available at a fairly low cost. And then in the other sphere, we have a cold storage facility that we're building. Many of our local residents can't always make it to the farmers market in Squamish on Saturdays, where there's Pemberton farmers that come down for that. And as well, Pemberton farmers rely on the Squamish market for part of their economic success. And so we want to make it easier for customers in particular to access regionally grown and produced products. So we're developing a cold storage where customers can purchase directly from the participating farms. The farmers let them know that they choose to pick up at the hub, and they let them know when it's going to be delivered. Customers can then go pick it up. They have a door code and they can just go and pick up their order. So it's kind of a self-governing space with a little bit of staff time, but it allows for a bit of disruption from buying from grocery stores and things like that. And we know that we need them, but we know that many community members and customers really want to support farmers directly. We know that farmers want to sell directly to customers. We just needed a few more options to hopefully increase just economic value and the whole community.
Okay, so can I ask you, what are you talking about putting into cold storage? Are you talking about fruits and vegetables, or are there also eggs? Is there meat in there? Like, what are we talking about?
So we are building, it's a 40-foot by 8-foot reefer unit, so a shipping container essentially, and that we're refurbishing. And it's going to be attached to a 20-foot dry storage with freezer space. So regardless of what product you're selling, whether it's frozen fish or canned fish or eggs or vegetables or fruit or poultry, whatever it is, we have a space for you to store it safely that's approved by our health authority. And we're organizing it in a way so customers are really well trained, farmers are really well trained. So it's a new way to buy. To my knowledge, nobody is running an operation like this. We've interviewed over 20 food hubs across North America when we were doing our feasibility study, and people have some incredible models that we were really inspired by. But we wanted something that was lower risk to just get the ball started. And we've got 10 or 11 farms that are already starting with us, and we're about to break ground this month. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that is so exciting, because you're enabling both the producers and the eaters to get together, to connect, and to do what they really want to do. There's just no way for that to happen these days with the bureaucracy that's been imposed on people.
Yeah, I agree. Claire and I have had lots of conversations about some of the barriers that exist for small and medium scale farmers, whether you're organic or not, and getting product to market from those more rural places and expanding your customer base is a top priority. We're hoping that it will work, but we also know that everybody is coming in with the mentality of, let's try this, let's flush out the bugs, see what's going to work, and make tweaks as needed. And I just want to hone in on is how supportive both SLRD and District of Squamish has been for this project. And so that's an important piece, is that everybody's excited and on board.
And as an eater, I love that you started by explaining that not everybody could get to the market on Saturdays. We often overlook that key piece, that not everybody's able to get to the market. That to me is one of the most valuable pieces, is the person who's buying. We're very protective of our farmers and our land, and we're worried about our policies. But when you start with the eater, in my opinion, you're starting with the most significant part.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And just even anecdotally, we know that downtown Squamish on a Saturday, it's really busy. Parents are driving their kids to soccer games in Vancouver or going to Pemberton. And even in Pemberton, their market's on a Friday night. Well, people also have plans on a Friday night, right? Like the market is one avenue. It's not the end all be all. And I love farmers markets. They're incredible. And I kind of feel like they're a little bit of a gateway to what is possible. And so when we speak about this, we're calling the Harvest Hub project, we're speaking about it as added value versus competitiveness. It's not competing. It's bringing more value to both customers in flexibility and being able to choose and support regional products and farmers, and also giving more money to farmers because there's a small fee to use the space, but we're not taking 40% as if they were selling to a larger grocery chain.
I think another really key piece is that the Harvest Hub will be open year round. We know many of our markets are not year round spaces. So I think this is trying to look at our food system as a full year food system and how we can localize that year round. And because it's been a lot of work to get to this stage where we're seeing a lot of really impactful action happening on the ground. And I think from my perspective at the SRD, some of the key successes to enabling that was really around creating an agriculture plan that was a community plan, like right from the beginning, and that our implementation strategy and the actions in the agriculture plan speak to our community groups as partners, and they call out in our planning documents, Squamish Food Policy Council will be the lead on this Harvest Hub idea. And the District of Squamish will be the lead on activating community gardens in this space. So it's really calling out who is best set up to take action in these spaces. And often we're in this space where they're like, oh, well, it's not really our jurisdiction as a local government, and we don't necessarily have capacity or knowledge in this space. And I think rather than feeling like those were barriers at that planning level, we kind of saw them as opportunities to partner and to embed that partnership right in our plan. And I think rolling forward from the actual document to implementation, that enabled us to create an implementation agreement where Squamish Food Policy Council was our implementation body, and then the District of Squamish and the SRD contribute annual funding to Squamish Food Policy Council to do the amazing work they do. And it's not a huge amount of funding, but it's annual. And that allows Squamish Food Policy Council to leverage and to apply for grants. It also enables us as local governments to support Squamish Food Policy Council in a lot of the grants that they're applying for, whether we have to wear the hat as the agency, but Squamish Food Policy Council is actually taking a lot of the work, or whether we're just writing the letters of support. So I think like that implementation agreement was a really key part that flowed out of this like ag plan that really was created by the community for the community, with the community identified as implementers. And then the other piece, the local governments contribute this annual funding. And it's also a really key point that we get a presentation, like the SRD board and the District of Squamish board gets an annual update on all this exciting work that's happening too. And these are all great news stories, and it feels really exciting for elected officials too to see what's happening. And that annual check-in, I think, also has been really important to keep the momentum going and keep that political will and those champions. It's growing champions.
You know, one of the things that's really impressing me here is I've worked with several organizations where they say, set up a task force. We want to hear from the community. What do we need here? But then they dismiss everything as if they know better than the community does, and they give them what they feel they should get. And of course, the programs don't succeed as well because it's not what the community asked for. And what you're doing is specific to the community. You're working with the community. You've done exactly what needs to be done. I keep going back to the person on the ground, the eater, but you know, I don't like being dismissed, and I see too often that the eaters do get dismissed because it's like, well, you don't know as well as we do. You're listening to Tempest in a Stockpot. I'm Christine Bruce.
And I'm Brenda Barrett.
In the first half of this episode, Krystle tenBrink and Claire Dewar explained how the District of Lillooet-Squamish is designing policy to intentionally neutralize bureaucratic thinking, ensuring that everyone experiences food security. The Squamish Food Policy Council is building collaborations with local organizations and agencies, where farmers are getting access to more land and eaters are getting more direct access to those farmers. It's sensible and logical at the same time, and it immediately reduces stigma because no one is obliged to police the process. Our land acknowledgement at the beginning of this episode is all about water and how it gently meanders around obstacles. Not just a resource you need to survive, water is an excellent metaphor for how to manage stigma and bureaucratic thinking. Up next, Krystle and Claire are going to explain how food maps work and how invaluable they are to making any community feel less remote and less vulnerable to the whims of geography, climate, and economic or political change. And wait until you hear what their local politicians have agreed to do to ensure ongoing funding for food security in the District of Lillooet-Squamish. Pinch me, I can't believe how excited I am to be talking about policy.
Are there key policies or elements of bureaucracy examples that you could give that you changed or added to keep things moving forward?
I might provide a quick example. The old official community plan of the District of Squamish said, under its food and agriculture title, it said, "We support food security initiatives." That's it. And so it went from those 5 or 6 words to 5 pages of very detailed categories, sort of subheadings with very, specific policies inside of it that then turned into overall goals that were measured year to year. We're able to also share back some of those specific objectives and goals that they have prioritized as their official community plan or their regional growth strategy. In particular, the District of Squamish, they track the amount of food assets that are in the district and in the area. So one year we might have started with, say, 20 food assets, and that can be anything from a community kitchen to a soup kitchen or a food bank, a community garden, a school farm. It can be anything. And farms are also included in that. And we've been able to watch that food asset map grow every year because we've been helping to strengthen and increase food assets in our neighborhoods. And we've been really envisioning this idea that in every neighborhood in our community, we've really envisioned that there is a food asset within sort of a small biking distance away or walk away. And this is, food assets can really help create community. They make people feel like they're part of it versus external from it. And again, I think that's also tying back into what Christine was saying about that it's really like the customers want to feel like they're part of it. This work of food systems and climate action should feel that it's just part of our sort of day-to-day lives, and you're doing your own little way. Maybe you go purchase from your own farm that's right down the street. It's like these little things allow you to feel like you're part of it versus external from it.
If you have a food map, does that also make it easier for you to see where there isn't an asset so that you can build one?
Yeah, our food asset map, we took on the lead for the whole region. So all the way up to Lillooet, including Pemberton, Whistler, and Squamish. I will say it is hard to keep totally accurate and updated, but I think we generally know. It's hard to kind of hear back from people sometimes because there's hundreds of people on there and small businesses start up and close or they move locations, and we don't always know, but we do try to update it once a year. And it's a wonderful tool. A food asset map can really be a great visual tool, to share with stakeholders. And, I think any community can benefit from having that overarching goal of increasing food assets.
We've seen some really amazing sort of synergies come out of this work too around food assets and food systems and creating community, and how having that knowledge, mapping, and also connections are really powerful in when we are experiencing natural hazards. And the SRD has a lot of natural hazards that we're managing now on a very regular basis. And in particular, last summer, we had really extreme wildfire season And we looked to our food asset maps to support evacuation. And so that actually inspired our Protective Services Department to be collaborating and connecting with our local food organizations, whether it was Squamish Food Policy Council. In the north, we have a similar body, Lillooet Agriculture and Food Society, and those were the key ways that we were able to connect with people in an emergency setting. But it's also inspired different ways of thinking about protective services, specifically in our agriculture areas. And also, like, if you're thinking about keeping things moving, I think finding opportunities to see how this work and these connections are helpful across lots of different spaces. And it's not just about food, though the food can be the connecting point.
Yeah, like Claire said, there's been a lot of emergency management planning in light of anything that could happen. And I think we also saw this during COVID. You know, the farmers markets were shut down and people were like, hello, we would like to buy from our farmers. And the farmers are wondering how they're going to sell their product. And so a lot of these food hub kind of projects popped up. And so I think strengthening regional food systems just makes good sense for everything, anything that possibly could happen. And it's good for people, it's good for economy, it's good for, our natural environments. If, farmers can sell direct, it's generally more economically valuable for them instead of going through, a middle person or a third middle person, and then you got to drive it. So lots of options there.
You really inspired me. Everything that you're saying underscores all the strengths. It's sustainable. It's obvious. People are plugged into it. It's wonderful in so many ways. What an inspiration.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I do still feel like we have a lot to do. It's endless work. Claire and Sarah and I work together each month to talk about what are we working on, what's moving forward. So the implementation plan is always moving forward. And in the last 5 years, my understanding is that I mean this sincerely, that we've been able to implement our plan at an incredible speed. And I believe, it's not just people and passion, it's also the system and the way it's been set up. Local governments trust us to do the work that we do best. Give community groups funding, give them good, sustainable funding every year so they can rely on that. And then they can take that $40,000, $50,000, $80,000 and go and bring in another $500,000. And so if those basic needs and those basic costs can't be covered, you're going to just constantly be surviving as an organization and as a nonprofit. And that is not sustainable. That is not setting your community up for success. And it's not setting your community organizations up for success so they can go do what they do really well, which is bringing in money from external funders, connecting all of the dots together, fostering conversations to ensure that barriers are being removed. We're strengthening systems. We're setting up projects for sustainability. We're looking at maybe social enterprises as a way to diversify revenue. I think, the movement of school meal programs is a really great opportunity to perhaps do something like this, and so on and so on. And so I think we've done a really good job of we divide and conquer, but we collaborate. The collaboration and the partnerships are at the core of our work. And the funding is so pivotal for being able to do all of these things.
To create that sustainable core funding that then you can leverage. Can you speak to that? Or is it still too early a day? You have said both the municipal district and the regional, they are putting in that base core funding. Where are they finding that in their budget now? And also what's in the works potentially?
We have a board resolution to explore establishing a service for food. And what that looks like is being worked on right now by SRD staff, but it's exciting. So we have regional districts have lots of service establishment bylaws. That's kind of how we requisition funds. And the concept is that we would be setting up a service establishment bylaw that would cover electoral area D, and District of Squamish, and that all the residents within those areas would be contributing annually through taxation. And we're not talking a lot. We would still be keeping the amount around $40,000 split between all the households. Would typically be based on assessed value. It doesn't mean that it's going to be burdensome on the property owners. I think part of the premise is that how can we think of food as a service to our community, and that if we are all contributing, we all feel more invested and proud and connected. It's also recognizing that we need these aspects to be resilient and to be ensuring that we have food security and investing in our local systems, just like we invest in our water systems or our road systems. Like this project is on right now. Like we've had to wait a couple years to get staff capacity to be entering into the conversations. Residents have to be on side with it. I think because it's not a very big financial ask, and because of all of the groundwork that Squamish Food Policy Council has done, I'm really optimistic that we will see this move ahead. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting space to move out of just having to look at grant funding and annual asks, and that this can just be part of our way of supporting the work that our communities need to be connected to. We do have a board resolution. District of Squamish and SOD are supportive of it. Our current board and the District of Squamish Council are supportive of it. So now it's bringing all of our community into that support space.
Can I just play the devil's advocate for a minute and ask you, so this sounds wonderful and it sounds like the perfect solution, but what happens in 4 years when a different council gets elected in? Is this one of those things that's only successful until the next council steps in and they throw it out? None of these answers ever feels permanent to me these days because politicians can be so fickle.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing with the service establishment bylaw is it's there. It doesn't change with the elected officials. Funds are requisitioned annually, but that ability will be there unless a bylaw were repealed, which is a big process too. So I think it actually has the ability to be more sustainable than our current system that does depend on the council and board gifting or granting this $40,000 annually. When we have it in a service establishment bylaw, that is more stable and has the potential to have more longevity, reflecting changing councils and boards and political.
Yeah, and I might speak, Christine, I hear you on that, totally valid. And I think because we've had incredible, mostly unanimous support with both our SLRD directors as well as DOS elected officials like council and mayor, we've had a lot of support. And I think when we present annually, that really gives people an opportunity to kind of share where we've come from. Here's the impact we're having. And really, nonprofits need to do a good job of sharing the story and sharing the impact. And oftentimes when new council or directors are elected, I usually reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to grab a coffee? I'd love to share with you a little bit about what we've been up to for the last 10 to 15 years, and tell me a little bit about how you might personally connect to this work. And I've worked with communities across all of BC and beyond, and many people have had so many barriers with their elected officials. And I believe that relationship building is the absolute foundation to doing this work and working collaboratively. You got to find that personal tie-in, right? Find some common ground, figure out, this elected official perhaps is fighting on maybe supporting. I'll give you an example. We used to have an elected official who did not want to support our urban agriculture policy development to allow for unlimited greenhouse space. So you could have a big backyard and your whole backyard could be greenhouses if you wanted to. So we really went all out on a bylaw with urban agriculture. So it was backyard bees, backyard hens, and greenhouses. And he was very loud about totally disagreeing with this bylaw. And that's fine. He had his vote, right? They voted and they voted to support it. And that policy went in many, many years ago before our agriculture plan was even finished. And I will tell you, in his last elected term, he said to me and to our group one of the nicest compliments I have ever received in my life about how much impact we've had and how pleasant it has been to work with us. And he's really grateful for us. And he was passing the torch as he was on his way out and is no longer an elected official. He then was passing a torch to the next group of people who were learning how to become directors and counselors. And it was really incredible to see that full circle. And I think that it was because he slowly started seeing what this work can really do. And I think he envisioned maybe every single backyard would be full of greenhouses and loud chickens and roosters and bees flying everywhere. You know, everybody has their own personal perceptions of what some of these changes might look like. But I think the more that you can take people out of the office and get them onto a farm, take them to a community garden, take them for tours to your soup kitchen and your food bank, and make them feel like they can be a champion. If we don't do that, we are missing the boat. We're missing that opportunity, because food and agriculture connects all of us together. Whether you acknowledge it or not, it's kind of up to us as those community group leaders to help find those synergies and find that common ground, because we've all had a farm experience that have shaped us. It's a matter of like, just get out there and find it and then build on that.
This podcast was generously funded by the Public Health Association of BC. Brenda Barrett is my co-lead and the Executive Director of the Storytellers Society in Hazelton. Technical production by Christine Bruce. Music by Elijah Larson. Our food experts today were Krystle tenBrink, the Executive Director and a co-founder of the Squamish Food Policy Council, and Claire Dewar, Senior Planner for the region of Squamish-Lillooet. For more information on this or any other episode of Tempest in a Stockpot, visit storytellerssociety.org/Tempest. Thank you for sharing this exceptionally tasty meal of food policy with us. I'm Christine Bruce, reminding you to stir that pot and to resist the urge to police the vulnerable. At the end of the day, we all just want agency over our own food choices. And of course, to drink lots of fresh, clean water.